Hey, g'day, Peter here from, well, Peter Johnson, and I'm the author of Why Are You Still a Slave? And I just wanted to go through the back pages of this. I actually credit in this book 159 other training courses, seminars, and books that I've read and studied and kept, because a lot of the material that I've seen and that I'll bin if it's pretty average material, and there are a lot of average material things out there. But if it's got an idea in it, just one idea that I can pull out and I can use, then I'll put that on my shelf and I'll keep it, especially if I implement the idea in my life. Now, so I've got 159 sources there that I quote, that are sources that I've read all of those books, which is pretty good for a bloke who couldn't read when he left high school. I literally couldn't read it at the end of year 12. I got a pass back in those days because I saved up and bought my own computer, and parents thought I was crazy spending the money on a computer, thought I should buy a car. But because I had the computer, I could get top marks by using the spell check and the grammar check, even back then. Now, back then, everybody else was handwriting assignments, even in high school. So computers weren't very common. So I was quite. I spent $2,500 on an old computer back then that had, I think, 1 gig of RAM and 120 meg hard drive. So pretty average compared to what we have nowadays. Anyway, but I wanted to read some of the authors out that I really think are good. Like, there's lots of authors out there, but James Rowan is fantastic. I really do credit him for a lot of the mindset mentoring that he gave me in his courses. Jim Rowan, or James Rowan, if you read his books, but he's got a phenomenal seminar presenting attitude and such a genuine style about what he does, and again, he sells information. He doesn't sell products to people, and you got to be careful of presenters who sell information and sell products, because it's very hard to not be biased towards your products when you're doing both, isn't it? It's you. If your accountant's recommending properties that you should buy, he's probably getting some kind of kickback or benefit out of that, and I probably wouldn't buy them. I would buy them off. I would find them myself, and I'd buy the information from people who selling the information to me rather than selling the products. But anyway, so James Rowan, Charlie Tremendous Jones, he's fantastic. Ed Foreman, he's got a really good audio tape on how to have a fantastic day. Brian Tracy covers everything from sales all the way through. Zig Ziglar, sorry. Now, Brad Sugars is an Australian guy, and he runs Action International, and he's actually, I credit him for a lot of my business knowledge. He really got into the nitty gritty. He's an accountant, right? And he had a really good style about presenting it to people, all of the different business things that you might need to know to run a business successfully and to sell it or market it. So Brad Sugars. Peter Spann was a guy who taught me a lot about property, and a key piece of information about property, which is borrowing money. And if you can't borrow money, you can't use somebody else's money. If you can't use somebody else's money, you're using your own. And if you have to use your own, it takes a long time to save up to make investments. So Peter Spann, I don't think he's doing a lot at the moment, but in his heyday, as it were, he had some really good information, and I learned a lot from him. So I'd certainly recommend his material when it comes to property. Tony Robbins, of course, is fantastic for your mindset and all of those things. I definitely recommend him, and I've put a note, Peter Johnson, which is obviously my book. So now, and the other thing to mention is the quotes. Like, investing is tough, and part of the reason why it's tough is because everybody that knows and loves you is going to tell you that you're doing the wrong thing at least sometime, right? And they're going to be somebody you really trust and that really loves you and you really love them, and they're going to tell you in no uncertain terms, you're going to lose your shirt. I wouldn't tell you this if, whatever. And it's going to be hard to go against them. But what you have to weigh up isn't whether they love you or not, because they obviously do, that's why they're saying it. And they're obviously giving you their best advice. But unless their best advice has led to success in the exact same field as what you're endeavouring to go into, or what you're trying to do, unless they've already made $10 million out of real estate and you're trying to make $1 million, in which case, and they've done it with no money to start, because you've got no money to start maybe. If they made $10 million in real estate but they started with an inheritance of $1 million, that just doesn't count, because they can't tell you how to get started, right? So you need people who've done what you're trying to do, and so I've got a bunch of sayings that help me, and unfortunately, my mum loves me and she's a great mentor to me, and she's taught me a lot about life and love and all of these things. But when it comes to business, I've almost got a proxy that if Mum thinks it's a bad idea, then it's probably a good idea, because it's just worked out that way in my life. Nowadays it's a bit of a joke and we have a laugh about it, but it's always been a good lesson for me that even though people love you, they're going to give you their best advice, but it doesn't mean it's the right advice. Now, I'll just go through a couple of quotes I've got. So, if it is to be, then it's up to me. And these are just to help me along the way. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're probably right. You can trust a thief, but you can't trust a liar. Now, in business, that's important, because people lie to you, then that's it. I don't do business with people who lie or cheat. Greed's killed more men than women or whiskey. When you're investing, don't be greedy. Leave some on the table for somebody else. Don't be afraid to sell before you get to the top of the market, or buy after the market's moved as such. Don't be the first in or the last out. Investors, contrary to what poor people think, investors don't take risks. Like, your average poor person takes far bigger risks when they invest in the share market than I do. Most people don't even know that there's a mechanism for insuring your stocks against losses. And if you bought HIH years ago, that was like considered a blue chip stock, and it was never going to go down. And overnight it went down to zero. It lost everything. And share brokers will tell you, oh no, it's a theoretical risk and they don't go to zero. Well, a lot of people, that asset went to zero, and if they had 30% of their savings tied up in that, they lost 30% overnight. So anyway, so that's just something to keep in mind. The only mistake that you can make is to not learn something from your mistakes, and these are things like, my attitude towards life is that you should there's nothing to be regretful about. You're having a great life, and if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, and you're better and wiser for it and smarter, and nobody can make you happy. I can't make you laugh now, I can't make you smile, I can't change your emotions, I can't make you happy in life. Money can't do that for you, love can't do that for you. You do that all for yourself. And so anyway, I hope this video has helped some people. Have a read of my book, and I think it's about $3.50 for the Kindle version. You can read it while you're on the train, and you'll get far more value than that out of it. And buy the paperback version, it's about $25. Then you can put it on your shelf and will it to your kids the same way as I'm doing with my children. I'm willing my library onto them. So anyway, like, comment, subscribe, share, and we'll see you on the next video.